We've seen how effective social media sharing has been to bring awareness of the gravity of the situation. Can you plan what a feasible solution would be to actually benefit Palestinians? Apologize to John Oliver. He did a decent job on this one. Wait, what? I'm agreeing with that. I said that he did a decent job. But that is how the media covers it, which I think is ridiculous. But let's take a look.
Welcome to Last Week Tonight. I'm John Oliver. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been a busy week. Elections on Tuesday saw big wins for Democrats. Ohio voted to enshrine abortion rights in its state constitution. And the SAG strike finally ended, meaning that movies will be back in production. Although, to be honest, I'm not even sure that I need movies anymore since this 17-minute video was released of what I can only describe as a hamster Gatsby living its best life. It's a complete masterpiece, and it goes on for 16 more minutes. I mean, Barbenheimer was fine. I liked it fine, but be honest, it's just not as good as that. And I really hope you enjoyed watching it. I really do, because we're going to dive straight in with our main story tonight, which concerns the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas. A sentence which is a terrible way to start a comedy show and a great way to end a first date. And look, before we even begin, I know a lot of the conversation surrounding this has been extremely heated. You may have seen friends or co-workers posting hot takes that have shocked you. Suddenly, that guy who offered you coke at a wedding is writing thesis-long Instagram stories on the two-state solution. Kathy from work is posting something that's anti-Semitic in a way that you really hope she doesn't realise. And it's all shoved in between your favourite influencer showing whole while also calling for a free Palestine. The internet...
I mean, right off the bat, it's like, I don't know.
...is a wild place. Things are understandably very tense right now.
Notice how he didn't say anything like that's like... Notice how he didn't say anything that's like, you know, defending Israel on Instagram in a negative capacity. All the examples that he used are like mostly people that are pro-Palestine but silly.
Now, and it seems like everyone is finding themselves making mistakes, and I do mean everyone.
Meanwhile, Kmart has had to pull one of its Christmas items off the shelf because of its unfortunate wording. The shopping giant selling ham Christmas calico bags with the slogan Merry Hammas, which appears to be too similar to the name of the terrorist group Hamas.
Yeah, that is too similar. It'd be like naming your child John Blaine Gacy. It's too close for comfort. But spare a thought for Australian Kmart there. How were they supposed to know that Hamas was going to launch a terrorist attack so close to the ham mass season? I think we all definitely celebrate and have heard of before. It feels like ham mass starts a little earlier every year, doesn't it? One day it's Hamaween, the next your neighbour's hanging up Hamas lights. And celebrities have also found out the hard way that it's easy to get things wrong. A few weeks ago, Justin Bieber posted praying for Israel over a picture of a devastated city that he apparently didn't realise was actually Gaza. He then deleted the post and reposted the same prayers over a blank background, which, as we now know, thankfully did solve everything. There was also a statement issued by a group of celebrities calling for the immediate return of Israeli hostages, which TMZ covered like this.
Anyone involved, it seems, in the Hollywood industry all put their names to a letter to President Biden. It really does feel like it's everyone. It's Chris Rock, it's Gwyneth Paltrow, it's
Can I ask you something?
Adam Sandler, it's...
Let me ask you something. Who doesn't want to get the hostages out?
Bradley Cooper. Yeah, I mean, you're right. You know what I
mean? Yeah, great question. I love this question. It is one that should be asked over and over again. I have never met a single person, luckily, okay? And I don't even think that those people exist on the planet. Okay, maybe like some fucking random guy who's like really invested in LARPing as like a Hamas militant on Twitter or something. But I've never met a single fucking person who's like, yeah, dog, no, Hamas should keep the hostages. Like when people talk about a ceasefire, I love the IDF turning around and being like, I love the IDF turning around and being like, if you say ceasefire without saying release the hostages, you're being anti-Semitic. I'm like, bitch, what do you think a ceasefire is? Like what? You think people that are pushing for a ceasefire are like, ceasefire and no release of the hostages? What the fuck are you talking about? Like, it's a given. It's a given, dumbass. Why are you fucking attacking an argument that nobody made? Like, this is, if you look at two situations, okay? On the one hand, you have Hamas, you have Islamic Jihad, and numerous other Palestinian militant groups that have around 230 hostages, or did have around 230 hostages. I believe 63 of them have been killed so far, not by Hamas, but by Israeli bombing campaigns. Okay? Because why the fuck would they kill those hostages not on camera? They would kill them on camera to be like, hey, we're very serious about this. We're going to execute hostages if you don't listen to our demands. Here's a hostage that we're killing. That's usually how this goes, right? Both in movies and in the real world as well. So, now that we've established that, okay, they are the ones who are, the Hamas militants are the ones who are saying, we want to release the hostages. We need like a slow burn of like a ceasefire. We want to release the hostages one day at a time. And we're going to utilize that as an opportunity, like to basically create a condition for a ceasefire, to which Israel has responded with, fuck no, we're going to keep blowing up the fucking bases. We're going to keep blowing up the hostages. We don't give a fuck. So much so that Netanyahu, one, for weeks, did not even meet the families of the fucking hostages. And then in a meeting, had a fake family that he had planted break into the meeting and go, Mr. Netanyahu, sir, I'm one of the fucking family members of one of the hostages. Please do everything in your power to kill everyone. Like, not the hostages, but implied that, like, the bombing campaign should continue. I don't care. Remember that. Like, that's insane. So, in this situation, the only fucking person, it seems, that doesn't give a fuck about the hostages or wants them to be released is Benjamin Netanyahu. Okay? Not a fake family. No, he had like a fucking Netanyahu sympathizer go into the fucking room. According to, not my assessment, this was like, I think it was on either Times of Israel or Haaretz. I forgot where I read it. But they reported on it at the time. This was like weeks ago at this point. It was literally a fake family. I think it was Haaretz, yes.
Statement. Of course everybody wants the hostages out.
I just think it's beyond ridiculous. Like, if we play that out for a second, Joe Biden's going to get this open letter and be like, what? Oh, my God, The Rock signed this. To get the hostages out. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. As much as I hate to agree with Paparazzi Sports Center, they're right about that. The Rock probably isn't going to solve the conflict in the Middle East. It's one of those things so obvious it shouldn't need saying, like pie tastes good or rainbows are pretty or...
Yeah, like, Mr. President, release the hostages is so insane because, like, he doesn't have the hostages. Like, not like Biden is holding them hostage.
No, she is amazing in the sack. Look at that tongue. End of discussion. But even as Harvey Levin levelled some fair critiques on the utter futility of celebrity, he couldn't help taking a pretty strong stance of his own.
The statement of a ceasefire is...
Oh, yeah, here it is. Families of kidnapped Israelis meet Netanyahu only to find unknown family boosting the prime minister. We need to stop this whiny behavior. We need to win the war, said unverified relatives who appeared at the meeting between the hostages' families and the Israeli prime minister and stirred an uproar amongst the others. Bro, he planted a fake family of Bibists. Now, I don't know if Benjamin Netanyahu personally planted the family or if the Bibists are that fucking psychotic that they thought this would be cool and good to do. Okay? But how crazy is that?
That you are going to allow
Israel to stop attacking.
Right. So you are going to then allow Hamas to come back in and try to exterminate the Jews in Israel and Israel.
Presumably their ceasefire means Hamas should not be attacking either.
Yeah. Wait.
That's exactly what the ceasefire means.
And Hamas attacked in the first place. This was a terrorist.
Dude, this is such a funny fucking take because it's like, okay, then you keep bombing, dumbass. Like, what are you saying? Like, this is the thing that was very frustrating to me as well. Like, when I talked about a ceasefire negotiation with Russia, okay? Parties involved in this proxy war, okay, needed to come to the fucking table and secure permanent security assurances for Ukraine, okay? And everyone was like, dude, that's appeasement. Like, you want to do appeasement with Russia? To which my answer always was, okay, then you keep fucking fighting. Like, what do you mean? It makes no sense. People literally are like, I said it all the time. All wars end in a peace treaty. Yes, I said it back then as well. People get like really mad at me. And it's like, but then you continue it. Then you continue fucking fighting then. Like, okay, they violate the ceasefire and then you keep fighting. What happened? Nothing changed.
Attack.
Right.
And the idea that there's going to be a ceasefire now invites Hamas just to do it again.
Yeah.
Also, that's so fucking stupid. It's so dumb. Because the idea that, like, ceasefires don't occur with Hamas is just wrong. Okay? That is just wrong. They have done multiple ceasefires. Every single siege on Gaza has ended with a fucking ceasefire. Okay? Of course, they continue doing ceasefires with Hamas. The idea that they don't do it is ridiculous. The only thing that violates the ceasefire, if you're fucking stupid, is, of course, always Hamas's retaliatory bombing campaigns, right? Missile campaigns. However, those retaliatory missile campaigns do not come in they do not start off in a fucking vacuum. If you listen to American media, they always say unprovoked, unprovoked, unprovoked. It's not unprovoked. It's never unprovoked. They have very limited opportunities, okay? You have to remember this. They have very limited firepower. They have very limited manpower. This is not like a robust, industrious nation that has the capacity to build whatever kind of weapons they want to, okay? The problem is people do not understand that Israel's continued maintenance of its apartheid state is a clear definitional violation of the ceasefire because they think that's just regular upkeep of the state. But if you go into the fucking mosque, okay, and you raid it and you beat the shit out of those who are praying there and you kill like old ladies and shit, yeah, of course someone's going to fucking retaliate. That's usually how this goes. Almost every single time a ceasefire is violated by Hamas, it's always started with a violent escalation from the Israeli side beyond the regular upkeep of an apartheid regime, okay? It's just that we don't see it as such because we don't want to think about Palestinians as human beings anyway.
TMZ is now hashing out its preferred solutions for what's happening in the Middle East, raising many questions, including, what exactly is TMZ now? It used to be ESPN for B-listers leaving the airport, and stories like, this celebrity died and not even their family knows yet. And now it's doing geopolitics. Pick a lane, guys. It's either Josh Gad spills ice cream on his dog or Ariel Sharon's impact on US foreign policy. You can't have both. The point is there are strong opinions everywhere, and in some cases, they've undeniably been informed by bigotry. Anti-Semitic and Islamophobic incidents, including violent assaults, have spiked in the US in the past month. To put it mildly, it's not been an easy time to wear a yarmulke or a hijab in America over the last month. And I say that knowing it's not necessarily been easy on our best days. So there are 1,000 different reasons why this is hard to talk about, but it does feel important to at least try. As you undoubtedly know, on October the 7th, Hamas-led militants launched an unprecedented...
Yeah, the only difference with what he's saying and what I believe in this situation is that while he's right that this has led to a dramatic spike in anti-Semitic incidents, and I will never deny that, that is 100,000% true. Let's be for fucking real. And also, of course, an insane amount of Islamophobia that sometimes doesn't even go reported in the same way because, like, it's not even seen as an aberration or a weird thing and simply state policy. I mean, holy fuck. Senator Marsha Blackburn said The only Palestinian Congresswoman, Rashida Tlaib, has alleged ties to Hamas. Get the fuck out of here, dude. That is insane. It's like the equivalent of a fucking sitting senator being like, Jews do control the fucking media. Like, what are we doing? What are we fucking doing here? That would never, ever fly, okay? Like, that would so not fly that they literally yelled at Ilhan Omar for saying AIPAC has an outsized influence on American foreign policy making and domestic policy making. It's ridiculous. The closest we've gotten to like this on the anti-Semitic side was Marjorie Taylor Greene, not when she was a sitting representative, but before, when she was a psychopathic QAnon wine mom, said that Jewish space lasers caused the California wildfires. And they wanted to censure her, but they actually didn't end up censoring her. But you know who they did censure? Motherfucking Rashida Tlaib for saying from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Anyway, so my point is this. Anti-Semitism and Islamophobia is absolutely on the fucking rise, okay? One does get a lot of attention and should get a lot of attention. Anti-Semitism is a very scary form of bigotry. All bigotry is impermissible, is not acceptable. Anti-Semitism specifically is also a telltale sign that someone might be a fascist, okay? In the Western world. However, there's no pushback on the Islamophobia in the same way that there is pushback on anti-Semitism. And beyond that, none of which should stop you from talking about an ethnic cleansing campaign that's currently occurring. Right? That's number one. Number two, while anti-Semitism is on the rise and it's skyrocketing, instead of fucking dealing with actual anti-Semites and the actual anti-Semitism that's occurring, people, instead of separating anti-Semitic incidents from the broader Palestinian emancipatory movement, they use anti-Semitism as a cudgel against it and claim that like the hundreds of thousands of people on the fucking streets are all basically saying to kill all Jews. It's fucking insane. And obviously the worst group engaging in this is the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League. I've talked about the ADL's ridiculous history of spying on activists, Jewish activists. The ADL has now personally started featuring activist organizations like Jewish Voice for Peace as anti-Semitic actors. They've completely dropped all fucking pretext that they had for at least like the past 10 to 20 years since the end of the South African apartheid, that they care about far-right domestic extremists, and completely have started attacking the left, which they always had. But they've gotten way overboard with it. Do you see that the ADL includes virtually all pro-Palestinian rallies under anti-Semitic incidents? The rallies amounts to 56% of the incidents. I was going to talk about that in a second. But let's get back to John motherfucking Oliver.
Unprecedented and brutal attack against Israel, killing over 1,000 people, mostly civilians, including women and children in their homes, in what has ended up being the deadliest day for Jews since the Holocaust. Over 200 hostages were taken, including a 9-month-old baby, most of whom have not been returned. It was hideous and it was sickening. In response, Israel has launched what's now become a month-long siege of Gaza, cutting off nearly all water, food, electricity and fuel to the territory in just the first 6 days of...
Yes, they were mostly civilians. Stop saying they were not mostly civilians, dude. It doesn't matter. Israel's fucking genocidal bombing campaign is still not allowed, okay? You don't have to fucking lie. Stop. God damn it, dude. I've covered this story 1,000 fucking times, okay? No. No, you're wrong. You're fucking wrong. You're wrong. No, it was not the IDF that killed its own civilians, even though the IDF did certainly kill its own civilians as well, but it wasn't like they weren't the ones that were responsible for all the fucking civilian deaths. That's ridiculous, okay? It's ridiculous. And also, the majority of the majority of those who were killed were civilians. Okay? That's the truth. Please. Stop. They overwhelmingly killed civilians, okay? They did. That doesn't change the equation though, okay? That doesn't change the dynamic. That doesn't make this somehow okay to like blow up every fucking hospital in the Gaza Strip in your open air prison. Yeah, there's a bunch of conspiracy shit going around saying the IDF killed everyone at the festival. I know. The helicopters, they like blew up the festival or whatever. That's not true. That's not fucking true. It's not. If you care about the truth, then, and you actually want to understand what happened, you have to be honest with yourself. Do I believe that the IDF ended up killing some of the hostages that were taken hostage inside of the kibbutz when they conducted a military operation? Probably. Okay, that happens all the fucking time, especially with how aggro the IDF strategy is, right? And then they've done it before. It's a part of the official military doctrine. But the concept that like they are responsible somehow for all the civilian deaths is ridiculous, especially when I've personally fucking seen with my own two goddamn eyes hundreds of fucking civilians that militants killed. Like, what are we talking about? It's so stupid. It's such a dumb thing to just like constantly fucking bring that up. It's not true. It's ridiculous. You don't know nothing about this? Yes, I do. And I know everything about the Ben Gurion Canal too, okay? Shut the fuck up. Just because I don't talk about it doesn't mean I don't see all the fucking dumb shit that people are saying. Oh my God, dude. You guys get fucking duped by like one TikTok. What happened? I thought the Chinese aircraft carriers were coming into the fucking region to like defend Palestine too. That didn't turn out to be the case either. So please. Anyway. Listen to me. Stop getting hinkled, okay? Jesus Christ. The helicopter thing was real, though? No, it's not. The helicopter thing was literally presented as like cars full of Israeli citizens fleeing the fucking festival were destroyed by Apache helicopters. That part is not true. There's not enough evidence for that whatsoever. And to be fair, the evidence actually, like, did some Israelis die in those fucking cars? Absolutely. They were held hostage, most likely, by Palestinian militants. Please stop. Okay? Stop. Bro, the IDF admitted it, though? No, they didn't. What are you talking about? No, they didn't. You saw one fucking thing out of context. The only thing that the IDF has admitted in Haaretz is actually shelling some of the fucking houses in the kibbutzim. They shelled some of the houses. They blew up some of the houses, and they made a calculation thinking that potentially there were no Israeli civilians in those houses. That's it. That's the only thing. And I scoured the internet. This community scoured the internet to find where people were getting these theories from and getting these ideas from. Okay? Oh, anyway, regardless. Yeah, even this was a very common one, right? This was like, super fucking, this was popping. It went real viral. Yeah, the reason why the majority looks to be in yellow and highlighted, even though this wasn't even 1,200 people, the Haaretz has the most comprehensive list. The reason why this is seemingly larger is because the fucking IDF soldiers that got killed have long ass fucking names because they have their military rank next to them. That's why they take up more than half of the fucking page, not because they actually are more than half of the page by number. I told you guys this. This is what my fucking haters don't understand, by the way. That at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. And if you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe. For $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account where you get 1 free Prime subscription a month. The other thing that my fucking haters don't understand is that, like, I am biased towards Palestinian emancipation. I want Palestinians to be free. I want a single secular state, okay? A pluralistic democracy. But having said that, I still look at the fucking information, and if something is not correct, I tell you it's not correct. I combat misinformation coming from the pro-Palestinian side regularly, but most people don't fucking understand that. Most people think that that's not the case. They understand. They just want you to look evil. Yeah, well, regardless, if there's any fucking haters in the chat right now, I hope you understand. This is something that I've fucking brought up a million times over. Anyway, what's your thought on the media being there on the attack day and not the guards? Wait, what? Yeah, you don't need to fucking engage in... The committee believes that most of the targets and people killed were IDF and Israeli police. If that's true, it's the only thing that shows the Palestinian militants have more composure than the IDF. No, the Palestinian militants did kill majority civilians. And yet they still, of course, have more composure than the IDF. Because if you look at the fucking number of Hamas militants killed versus Palestinian civilians, fuck it, not even the number of Palestinian civilians in general, but just like little fucking children. Okay? If you look at the number of children killed by the IDF, you recognize very quickly versus the number of children killed by Hamas and Palestinian militants as a whole, you realize, no, actually, one side has killed less. So if you're a lesser evil voter, okay, in this circumstance, Hamas is the lesser evil. It's just the truth. Lesser evil voters voting for Hamas over Israel because, hey, that's the lesser evil. Go ahead. Tell me I'm fucking wrong. It's the truth if you look at the fucking numbers on the board. But that doesn't mean that Hamas didn't fucking kill civilians. Please stop saying that. Yeah, it's harm reduction. Voting for Hamas is harm reduction. Do you understand? Sorry, Sweaty. I'm looking at the numbers. It seems, one side is killing a lot more kids. How are you verifying these numbers? I read yesterday the most casualties on 10-7 were IDF. Yes, because you didn't actually read those numbers. You actually just saw them on a Twitter thread. I actually do verify these numbers. How do I verify them? By going to direct fucking reputable sources like Haaretz, who demonstrate a diverse set of beliefs and aren't just like directly up, the Israeli asshole and literally will cover shit in a more critical fashion than fucking CNN. So yes, I do look at a broad variety of sources. And once again, Haaretz is flawed. Yes, certainly. But overall, when it comes to like giving out information, they have a goal. If you're the paper of record, your goal is to inform your population. Their goal is of course also to propagandize, certainly, but their goal first and foremost in a situation like this is to let people know that like their family members died, okay? That's the primary reason for why they reveal who was killed. And for that reason, yes, I think that their numbers are very reliable and I do believe them. Okay, the goal in that situation is identification. Okay? All right, let's watch John Oliver now.
Of the war, it dropped 6,000 bombs on a strip of land just 25 miles long and at most 7 miles wide. That is nearly as many as the record number that the US dropped on Afghanistan in a single year. As of this taping, more than 11,000 people had been killed, including at least 4,000 children. There is almost no piece of footage that I could show you from Gaza that is not horrifying or heartbreaking. But we did find one piece of footage where a child very aptly sums up what things are like there.
How have the past few days been, Abdulaziz?
Like shit.
It's okay, we can cut it out. Tell me, how have the past few days been, Abdulaziz? Explain to us.
You mean about the war?
Yes, how has it been with the war?
Like shit.
Yeah, of course it feels like shit. There is no other way to put it, and I'm honestly glad that he didn't even try there. I also appreciate him asking for clarification when the reporter started over. So, just to be clear, you're asking what it's like to live through this war, right? OK, I got it. My answer remains, like shit. Next question, please. I've got to say, it is hard to see a kid like that and then hear glib pronouncement like this one from Representative Brian Mast of Florida.
I would encourage the other side to not so lightly throw around the idea of innocent Palestinian civilians, as is frequently said. I don't think we would so lightly throw around the term innocent Nazi civilians during World War II. There's not this far stretch to say there are very few.
Not censured, by the way. This guy literally not censured. Just want to point out that Brian Mast, who is such a fucking dick rider, let me tell you something, okay? God damn, the dick riding is crazy. Okay, Brian Mast blows bubbles. Okay, he blows bubbles on the dick of Israel, if Israel had a dick, even though technically the gendered pronoun is she for Israel. Okay, maybe gawk, maybe a gawk. Israel might have a gawk, a girl dick. Okay. He blows bubbles so fucking hard. He blows bubbles so fucking hard. The dick riding is unimaginable. Why? Why is he going sloppy toppy? This man literally joined the international IDF brigade for like all the people that can't go to the fucking front lines, and was like, joined the IDF and claims that he fought with the IDF, even though he didn't fight. Okay? Even though he's a fucking Christian evangelical, dude. You're 360 no-scoping that cock at that point. Oh my God, dude. The guac guac 5,000, brother. Imagine. Fucking imagine being like, dude, I fucking love the IDF. I'm going to go down there. I'm going to fucking pack up medics, medical aid and stuff for the IDF and kiss all the soldiers. Hasan, I would like to see you talk more about Christian Zionism and its connection to Israel. Brother, if I talk more about Christian Zionism, the only thing I would be doing is talk about Christian Zionism. I've talked about it so fucking much. I'm literally talking about it right now. This guy's a Christian Zionist. He's an evangelical Christian.
Innocent Palestinian civilians.
Okay, that is not only disgusting, it's also evidently the sort of thing that you're allowed to get away with saying on the House floor with zero repercussions, because that's apparently where the conversation is right now. But just so we're very clear, there are absolutely innocent Palestinian civilians in the same way that there are Floridians who aren't brain-dead bigots with a penis for a head. A region's worst does not represent them all. And look, we don't have time to talk about the history of the Middle East tonight. I don't know what you're thinking, but John, are you sure about that? Aren't you school? Well, fun fact, I'm not. It just seems like that. I'm actually technically a comedy show. I just hide it better than most. So I'm not going to get into the thousands of years of generational trauma informing the response to this, including the Holocaust and the Nakba, or mass violent displacement of Palestinians during and after Israel's founding. I'm also not going to do a historical blow-by-blow of how Palestinians came to live in Gaza and the West Bank right now. You can Google that for yourselves, or even Bing it. That's honestly completely fine too, although I will say I wouldn't ask Jeeves about this. He has some unexpectedly pretty nasty views on the subject. Instead, I'd like to zero in on one of the biggest misconceptions that you may have been hearing over the last few weeks, specifically the tendency to collapse leaders and citizens when discussing this, to assume that Netanyahu speaks for all Israelis or that Hamas speaks for all Palestinians, because that is emphatically not the case. So tonight, Let's look at Hamas and Netanyahu, how they came to be in power, whose interests they do and don't represent.
I will say this
and
much.
What role they...
Sorry, I gotta fucking push back on this a little bit too. The Israeli government's actions are way more popular in Israel, specifically the Jewish Israeli population, okay, versus the Arab Israeli population. The Arab Israeli population, Palestinian citizens of Israel, of course, are very very different in their opinions. But like I said, the IDF and the Israeli government actions in Gaza are way more popular than Hamas is in the eyes of Palestinians. So just want to point that out as well. You know, do with that information what you will. I still don't think that is, you know, that means that it's like totally valid to go and kill a bunch of fucking civilians on the Israeli side. But, you know, that's because I have actual moral standards, whereas most people in this situation that are one-sided on behalf of Israel do not.
Played in bringing us to this current conflict. And let's start with Hamas. It has been around since 1987, has governed Gaza for the last 17 years. It was founded in part in opposition to where Palestinian politics was heading at the time, with the dominant political party, Fatah, embracing a peace process with Israel. A process, by the way, the Palestinians had high hopes for when it started.
Yeah.
But Hamas branded itself as the party of resistance to Israel and undermined the peace process with a long series of attacks and suicide bombings. And as prospects for peace collapsed, Hamas seems to be vindicated in its messaging. And you can see that philosophy continuing through to today.
This is a crazy thing to fucking openly admit on mainstream media. I will say it. I think that is, I mean, that's not the order of events, but like, regardless, the fact that he's even saying this and not immediately going, they're bloodthirsty, Jew-hating monsters that are behaving specifically with the goal of like destroying the fucking destroying the entirety of the Western world, and they're bloodthirsty and blah blah blah. Like, he's not saying that, and that's usually what mainstream media does say. So, for the record, this is obviously reductive analysis, but it's a fucking 30-minute video. But, you know, it's definitely clearing a bar for liberalism, for sure.
This senior Hamas official, Ghazi Hamad, recently doubled down on the massacre of October 7th by saying, we must teach Israel a lesson, and we will do it twice and 3 times. And for many commentators, all the citizens of Gaza are implicated in that sort of rhetoric, thanks to one key fact that you hear all the time.
The people of Gaza, the Palestinians, elected Hamas people, Hamas fighters, Hamas terrorists to their board of governors. The people in Gaza...
Yeah, bro, that's totally, they did, yeah, you know, totally. There's like 100,000 people remaining in Gaza that like actually voted for Hamas in general, maximum. Not even. Okay? Like 50,000 people maximum that actually fucking voted. But it doesn't matter! It doesn't matter! Just because you voted for George W. Bush doesn't mean that Iraq can nuke you, okay? It doesn't work that way! It's fucking crazy! Like, even if you fucking literally voted for Hamas, okay? That doesn't mean you could just be killed. Like, what are you talking about? That's such a psychotic thing. That never works that way, okay? I would never in a million years advocate to literally nuke every fucking, like, I would not nuke the villages, for example, right? The villages in Florida, because, like, overwhelmingly they vote Republican. Like, that's insane!
Elected Hamas. It's a terrorist organization. That is their government.
How do you say Hamas doesn't represent the Palestinian people when they voted Hamas in to represent them?
Okay, so very quick.
This quite literally was, yes, you're right. Hold on, who was it? Was it K.O. Fishy? Yeah, that is literally how Bin Laden justified 9/11. That's what he said. That's how, it's crazy. That's directly out of Bin Laden's book, okay? Straight up. The fuck is a village in Florida? A trailer park? Fuck no. No, the Villages is a old folks village, basically. in Florida, and they're overwhelmingly right-wing. But anyway.
Quickly, that is Tucker Carlson's replacement at Fox, Jesse Waters. He's a lot like Tucker, except less charismatic, way dumber, and with somehow even more of an I've killed someone during a fraternity hazing accident vibe, which is really saying something. Because look, it is true that Gazans did, at one point, elect Hamas. But if you think that makes them all complicit in war crimes their government commits, then boy, do I have bad news for you about decades of US foreign policy. And also, there are some huge asterisks on Gazans electing Hamas. First, that election happened in 2006, and there hasn't been one since. And given that children make up roughly half of Gaza's population, that means most Gazans weren't even born when the last election took place.
But 2 words, okay? 2 words. Listen. 2 words. Hamas children. What are you saying? 2 words. Didn't think about that, did you? Exactly. Terrorist babies.
What's more, Hamas didn't win a majority. It only won with a bare plurality of the votes, and it did so by running against Fatah, which was widely reviled for incompetence and corruption at the time. Those were the key issues in that election. Also, Hamas went out of its way to present itself as more moderate back then. In fact, here is that same Hamas official who recently justified the October 7th attacks, shortly before that 2006 election.
We are a moderate organization. Really, we are not a radical organization, and we are not extremist or fundamentalist. No, we are an open-minded organization, believe in democracy and the freedom and political pluralization.
Yeah, Hamas really tried to rebrand itself, kind of like Domino's did when they ran ads admitting that the sauce tastes like ketchup, the crust tastes like cardboard, and they promised to work days, nights and weekends to get better. But unfortunately, like Domino's, Hamas is a...
I can't believe he brought up... Did he bring up the new charter? This is... Dude, this is above and beyond. The fact that he's not wrong, okay? He's not wrong. That's crazy. Oh, he did not? Wait, what did he talk about?
Shortly before that 2006 election.
We are a moderate organization. Really, we are not a radical organization.
Oh, I was going to say, I thought he was going to talk about the fucking, the moderate charter that they came up with, the rebranding.
And we are not extremist or fundamentalist. No, we are an open-minded organization, believe in democracy and the freedom and political...
Yeah, by the way, explain to Americans lesser evil voting. It's pretty funny to think about, but like, you know, Palestinians thought that they were doing lesser evil voting, where they were like, okay, well, I'm going to do harm reduction and go with the guys that are not corrupted by the CIA and are not like, and haven't brought us a horrible peace process that only ended up with like hundreds of thousands of new settlements.
Pluralization.
Yeah, Hamas really tried to rebrand itself, kind of like Domino's did when they ran ads admitting that the sauce tastes like ketchup, the crust tastes like cardboard, and they promised to work days, nights and weekends to get better. But unfortunately, like Domino's, Hamas is a terrible organisation that in no way kept its promises. Because in the years following, that tone of open-minded freedom clearly fell away. Not only has there not been another election, most people in Gaza don't believe they have the freedom to speak openly.
One part of this also is that, like, the 2006 election wasn't conducted at the behest of the Palestinians, okay? There's never been an election in Palestine that, like, Palestinian... I guess the first one, maybe. But there's never been an election in, like, Palestinian territories that Israel didn't conduct for them, okay? And the 2006 one was Bush's doing. George W. Bush's doing. So, like, the idea that these guys are all like getting together and they're just like, oh man, I fucking sure would love to have an election. Or like even Hamas itself is like, please, let's do an election. We want to. Like, it doesn't work that way. It's not how it works. There's no fucking, you can't just do an election on your own.
One poll found that under Hamas rule, 68% believe that the right to participate in a peaceful protest was not protected or was protected only to a limited extent. And human rights groups have said that Hamas forces have carried out a brutal campaign of abductions, torture and unlawful killings against Palestinians accused of collaborating.
So this is really funny because he's talking about Hamas doing this, but also the irony is part of the reason why Hamas has so much power in the Gaza Strip is because American-backed, CIA-trained operatives within Fatah literally did this to Hamas, okay? That is unironically what happened. This is not a defense of Hamas in any way, shape, or form, but I want you to understand, like, they literally did this. Fatah did this and still does this, as a matter of fact. Like, the Israeli security forces collaborate, or rather, the Palestinian Authority collaborates with the Israeli security to literally continuously do this to Palestinians. Okay? So from the perspective of Palestinians, when they see Gaza, Hamas doing this kind of shit, they're like, well, that's really fucked up. But they're doing it. That's Palestinian on Palestinian violence. The other is seen as Israeli on Palestinian violence.
With Israel, and have attacked members and supporters of Fatah, their main political rival. And the truth is, many Gazans will say that they don't want Hamas in charge. Polls show...
Yeah, see, he's not mentioning the other side of this, for the record. Yeah, Palestinian military police in the West Bank enforced Israeli curfews for so many years. They've given up militants in the Jenin brigades to the Israeli forces so they can be detained and tortured and humiliated. Also, they've executed, even under the PLO, but with Arafat, when Israel was like, go kill some fucking Hamas leaders for us, they would say, of course, yes, we will do that. They literally, there was constant infighting between Hamas and Fatah, and the Palestinian Authority has continued on that tradition. And on top of that, they've literally given up and never tried to release other faction leadership, like not even Hamas, but instead like the PFLP, for example. Okay? So the idea that like the solution for the Palestinians is to like enforce the Palestinian Authority on them, to put the Palestinian Authority on them, you're wrong. That's not going to happen.
If true peace were available, many Palestinians would embrace it. In fact, one conducted right before October 7 found 73% favouring a peaceful settlement to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And it's notable that in July, despite all the restrictions on dissent in Gaza, there were actually people on the streets chanting slogans including "Fuck off Hamas" and "We want to live." And look, even if all Palestinians in Gaza did support Hamas, which they do not, the relentless bombings of civilians there would still be abhorrent. Collective punishment is a war crime. But the fact is, there is much more.
I don't like this argument. One, because it's not true. Okay? Like, Hamas is not a popular faction. It's not. However, it is currently seen as the only, the pluralistic faction. Okay? That much is true. Bro's not listening? No, I know, but he's using the fucking he said if, but he's using the like the Palestinians want to be liberated of Hamas or whatever. And when people say that, usually, and I've heard this so many times from fucking like more liberal soft Zionists that are like, oh yeah, well, you know, they don't all love Hamas or whatever, that's why you shouldn't kill them. It's like, ultimately, I mean, I guess he did say even if they all voted for Hamas, it still doesn't change the game. So I guess he's right.
More criticism of Hamas in Gaza that Americans in general, and these dipshits in particular, are willing to admit. Palestinians in Gaza are not a monolith, and nor important.
Yeah, it's the same argument I've heard time and time again. Exactly. They use it with Saddam. They use it with Gaddafi. Like, the idea always is, all the Palestinian activists I follow have never talked about being oppressed by Hamas. Yes, because the main oppressor there isn't Hamas. Hamas is basically the main oppressors there is Israel. Okay, I'm sorry, it's ridiculous. Unless you fucking find like some random Palestinian who like wants the right for the Atlantic or whatever, you're never gonna fucking find a Palestinian who's like, I fucking hate Hamas. Israel should bomb them, because they all understand that is literally the same fucking thing that's happened over and over again in every Middle Eastern country. Okay? It's fucking ridiculous. It's the same argument that I've made before. In 2016, when a coup d'etat happened in Turkey and it failed, Recep Tayyip Erdogan was almost couped by an American CIA operative that had been working alongside Recep Tayyip Erdogan, that had grown up together basically and came to political power together. Fethullah Gulen. Fethullah Gulen and Recep Tayyip Erdogan came from the same faction. Okay, they were both Islamists in different degrees, but Recep Tayyip Erdogan is more of an opportunist. Fethullah Gulen is more of a ride or die Islamist in a different way, but he is a CIA operative that was able to capture the attention and put his members of his like Islamist cult into literal positions in the government, okay? Police force, the criminal courts, the military, and a coup d'etat happened in Turkey. And as much as I fucking despise Recep Tayyip Erdogan, I know, and many fucking haters of Recep Tayyip Erdogan that live in Turkey, the elites, the elitist ass, lib ass fucking Turks who also despise Erdogan just like I do, okay? Just like I do, will tell you openly that it's still better to have Erdogan than an American puppet. This is the case. This is always the case. Okay? Always. Always. The devil that you know, that is, the devil that you know is always better than the devil that's working with the Americans, okay? And we have seen it over and over and over again. We've seen it over and over again. It happened in Iraq. It happened in Libya. When American-backed leadership take control over your government, they fuck it up, okay? They destroy it. They do not have any interest in, like, at least caring about the fucking people. 100,000%. Look at Libya. Is Gaddafi great? Of course not. He wasn't. He was not a great leader by any metric. I'm not one of those like, oh, I read the Green Book, I love him. Isn't it cool that he had like a bunch of sexy women that guarded him at any given point, or he gave all these models the Quran? Like, no. Okay? I'm not a Gaddafi dick rider, but it doesn't matter. Because Libya objectively was better with Gaddafi in power than without. And the same goes for Iraq. Saddam Hussein, for all of his faults and failures and ethnic cleansing campaigns over the Kurds and using mustard gas, chemical weapons that he got from us, by the way, was still objectively a better leader for Iraq. You don't have to be a Ba'athist to fucking recognize that. Okay, Saddam Hussein would have been a better leader for Iraq and was a better leader for Iraq than American control over Iraq. That's it. And you cannot, you can look at the fucking situation on the ground and come to that conclusion on your own. It's ridiculous. And the same goes for Palestinians. That is why they fucking hate the Palestinian Authority. And that is also why you will not hear Palestinians fucking shit talk Hamas in general, unless they're like the classic, like the Ayaan Hirsi Ali style, like, I'm a former Muslim and I think, I'm going to spend a lot of time shitting on Islam in general and play into Islamophobia so that everyone will love me. And then maybe later down the line, I will turn and convert to Christianity because I'm a fucking grifter. Okay. Most Palestinians recognize that, yes, while Hamas is a reactionary fundamentalist, now a little bit more moderate, but like its civil governance division is totally separate in my opinion. While they don't want to live under Hamas leadership, it's not like they have any other fucking options. Okay? Even my Iranian dad who lost a brother because of the war between Iran and Iraq has a special hatred in his heart for Saddam, agrees that it would have been better if Saddam was still in power. Exactly. You don't think Hamas is brutal to its own civilian population too? Not on the levels of Israeli brutality, but they did torture and kill Fatah members? Yes, and so did Fatah members kill and torture fucking Hamas militants too, and Hamas leadership too. I'm telling you right now, the way to defeat Hamas is not by fucking blowing up the Gaza Strip. Okay? The way to destroy Hamas is by making it so that there is no reason for it to exist. Yes, of course Hamas sucks. Of course. But it's fucking crazy to think that like these guys, they all are like, oh man, I really hope Israel will blow up my fucking house and kill my grandparents so I can be, inshallah, finally rid of the Hamas curse. Like, that is not an argument you can make. Nobody fucking believes that. Anyway.
Are Israelis. Because now let's talk about Benjamin Netanyahu, a man who's been Prime Minister of Israel for a combined 16 years. Here in the US, discussion of the current conflict sometimes conflates the current Israeli government with Israel as a whole, as if the two are entirely representative of each other. You'll hear, we need to support Bibi and Israel, or this is not a time to criticise Netanyahu. But that is not the case within Israel. Criticism of Netanyahu there is fierce. One poll found that 76% of Israelis want him gone. And many blame him for the security lapses that led to the October 7th attack. And immediately after that attack, videos went viral of Netanyahu ministers visiting hospitals where some of the victims were recuperating and being yelled at. Just watch this.
Bro, this is really good so far. I'm gonna keep it $1.50 for like a libbed up ass audience. This is actually really fucking good. Straight up. I think this is very, very good. I like it a lot so far. I have not seen, outside of like Mehdi Hasan, this is such a both sides Andy piece of shit. Lamau, doesn't matter, dude. Doesn't matter. The both sides argument is one that still, both sides argument is one. First of all, he like did not spend a shit ton of time being like, Hamas are bloodthirsty barbarian fucking terrorists that want to like rape and pillage. Okay. So right off the bat, he at least like ascribes like a rational actor theory here to a militant faction. Okay? You have to recognize that. That's important. That's important for analysis because most people don't want to do that. They do the exact opposite deliberately so that you don't ever fucking think that, you know, that there is like some that there isn't, sorry, what is it? My only quibble, which you already addressed, is the idea that Israeli society isn't fervently racist and dehumanizing as Palestinians as a whole. There are like 12 leftists and they're here right now. That part I'm sure he'll get to now. I don't know. We'll see.
This one minister essentially get chased out of the hospital, first by a family member and then by somebody who worked there.
אתם מפריעים שם. הייתי ילדה טובה, לא? הייתי ילדה טובה, הרסת הממשלה הזאת, הרסתם את המדינה הזאת, הרסתם את המדינה הזאת. תלכו מפה, תלכו, עכשיו זה תורנו. אנחנו עכשיו נשאר פה, אנחנו נעזור. ימין, שמאל, המאוחד, בלעדיכם. אתם הרסתם את המקום הזה. הרסתם, לכו מפה.
That is pretty intense. I don't know much about medicine, but after seeing that, I'm going to assume that the Hippocratic Oath actually goes, first, do no harm, and second, if unwelcome government officials are upsetting people in your hospital, kick them the fuck out.
Yeah, and then the third Hippocratic Oath is 100 Israeli doctors literally writing permission and begging the Israeli government to blow up the Al-Shifa, the Al-Aqsa, and all the major hospitals in Gaza, which I don't know if he's going to bring that up. We'll see.
Because he was clapping at her there, like you do when you're trying to get a bird out of your house. And while that anger at Netanyahu has certainly intensified since October.
Yeah, I'm sorry, dude. Like, dude, there's a lot more to talk about this. I'm glad that he's like doing. Like, even bringing this up as, like, a both-sided argument is, like, good because the media overall is a one-sided argument. Why doesn't he use the stats for IDF support in Israel? Yeah, there's that. IDF is a secular institution, by the way. But here's the thing, okay? Here's the thing. Most of the Western media plays a one-sided argument, and that is Israel's side, right? So for him to play the both sides argument is still objectively better than the broader Western media, okay? But if I'm being truthful, there is one side that is getting fucked over way more aggressively than the other, okay? And that side, like I've said time and time again, is not the fucking side that is the military power with a nuke. They control all the power. Israel is an apartheid state. It's not both sides. It's not complicated. Israel's an apartheid state. You have to always remember that.
It's also been there for a long time. Before the attack, Israel saw nearly 40 weeks of protests, including hundreds of thousands of Israelis marching in the streets in opposition to his plan that would effectively end the independence of the judiciary and endanger civil rights. And look, Netanyahu has always been a hardliner. He's forged his entire political persona around an extreme version of safety through strength, which has included active opposition to the peace process at crucial points. When former Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin agreed to the Oslo Peace Accords, which attempted to set a framework for an eventual resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, Netanyahu was fiercely against it, infamously speaking at a rally where protesters chanted, "In blood and fire, we will expel Rabin," and held aloft depictions of him in a Nazi uniform. Soon after that, Rabin was killed by a far-right Israeli extremist, and Rabin's widow blamed Netanyahu for stoking the flames that led to that. And in the wake of that assassination, Netanyahu's political career seemed dead. And it wasn't until a series of bus bombings by Hamas in Israel, as part of their own efforts to derail the peace accords, that Netanyahu was first elected prime minister. And his message of, "I am the only one who can keep you safe," has been consistent ever since. Here he is in the run-up to Israel's 2014 election, making that point again.
I feel the Jewish nation is under threat, and I'm prepared to mitigate that danger. It's what the state of Israel expects from me, and it's what I'll do.
Well, that is a big claim that just hasn't dated very well. Honestly, I haven't seen a politician's words age so poorly since Hillary Clinton tweeted, "Happy birthday to this future president." So he has always been hard right, but it's worth taking a minute to underscore just how extreme his current government is.
Israel's been getting one guy for a long time. I mean, it's not one guy. It's not. I think it's crazy to say it's one guy that's responsible for all of this. It's ridiculous. You're missing the forest for the fucking trees. This is, every guy. Even Yitzhak Rabin is a great example of, like, the guy who is the most peaceful guy by Israeli standards in the fucking 90s, by the way, which have gotten way, way worse. Okay, they have a proportional system. It's literally at least always 50% of the guys. Yeah, it's not one guy, it's every guy. Okay? Like, it's every guy, which even includes, like I said, Yitzhak Rabin. Remember when Ben Shapiro said Netanyahu and Likud weren't anti-Oslo Accords? Yeah, Ben Shapiro is a liar. He is a fucking liar. And also a Bibist, most likely. A genocidal maniac. Maybe not even a Bibist. He might be like a fucking Itamar Ben-Gvir fan, as a matter of fact. I don't know. But ultimately, he is a liar. That's it. He just lies all the time. That's all he's doing, is whenever he tries to defend Israel, is just lying and being racist. That's all he knows.
Because the truth is, Netanyahu has been struggling to hold office in the last half a decade. Voters there actually endured 5 elections in just 4 years because neither Netanyahu nor anyone else could form a stable majority. He only made it back into power last year by forming a coalition with those on the furthest right wing of Israeli politics, leading to the most right-wing government in the country's history.
Yeah, Itamar Ben-Gvir is a terrorist. He was part of a terrorist organization. Brother, the funniest part about that is, like, you know what Itamar Ben-Gvir is to Israel? If Hamas is a terrorist faction and Israel is a terrorist state, which I believe both of these statements, okay? Itamar Ben-Gvir is a terrorist by Israel standards, okay? He was considered a terrorist by Israeli standards. He was too radical and too violent and too racist for the Israeli military. Think about that, okay? To which it would be like if Hamas was saying, "No, dog, like, we can't let..." It's like ISIS, right? ISIS tried to operate in the region, and Hamas was like, no. We're the only game in town. Get the fuck out of here. And then they killed a bunch of ISIS guys inside of Gaza, okay? Because they were like, no, that's not... You have different interests. We're not about that lifestyle. We have a very different set of standards here. We have a very different operation here. So Itamar Ben-Gvir to the Israeli government is like ISIS to Hamas. Okay? The difference is Hamas killed the ISIS militants in Gaza, Whereas now Itamar Ben-Gvir controls like the interior security. He was also previously convicted of supporting a terrorist group known as, yes, the Kahanists. Yes, I know. Yeah.
His cabinet is stocked with extremists. Take Itamar Ben-Gvir. He's been convicted on at least 8 charges, including supporting a terrorist organisation and incitement to racism. He was once considered so fringe, the Israeli army rejected him from mandatory service. But he's now Netanyahu's Minister of National Security. Meanwhile, his current finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, has said, is there a Palestinian history or culture? There is none.
Bro, Smotrich is so much. I mean, he literally wrote a final solution.
There is no such thing as a Palestinian people. He's also advocated for victory.
By the way, that is so typical fucking settler scumbag takes right there, okay? Like, Smotrich is the average settler scumfucker, okay? Classic. Every time you talk to a fucking freak-ass settler, okay, these goddamn zealot terrorist psychopaths, they say the exact same shit. There is no such thing as... Well, actually, that's not true. Settlers would sound more like, there's no such thing as a Palestinian. And then you'd be like, why do you sound like this? And then they go, well, that's because I'm from Long Island. That's right. I was going to do an accent first, and then I realized, no, we're talking about settlers, so... Anyway, every one of these fucking freak-ass settlers say the exact same shit. There's no such thing as a Palestinian. There's no such thing as Palestinian land. It's Judea and Samaria, and it is our God-given right to take it.
Through settlement, very basically seizing land in the West Bank and driving Palestinians from their homes to the point where, quote, I abort their hopes of establishing a state. Settlements are widely understood to be against international law, yet Smotrich wants a massive expansion.
Yeah. Not across the board, of course. Obviously, I would never say that. Anti-Semitism comes in many different varieties. If you were going to make a distinction between that, the anti-Semitism in the Arab world is not born out of the same, like, blood libel, for the most part, but instead is born out of the Israeli nation state. Anyway, this kind of anti-Semitism growing in the Western world also greatly benefits Israel. Let's make no mistake. This is part of the reason why Benjamin Netanyahu can collaborate with open anti-Semitic fascist leaders around the world. Why? Because, well, you know, then if they're too afraid to live in their own cities in Europe, then they'll come to Israel. Israel necessitates, like the Israeli state has to be a Jewish ethno-state. It's the only Jewish ethno-state. That's the only way that we can defend all the Jews. Otherwise, a Holocaust might happen again. Meanwhile, as many American Jews have written about extensively, Jews in Israel are not more safe than Jews in New York are. As a matter of fact, they are objectively less safe as a consequence of the Jewish apartheid state that exists in Israel, a Jewish supremacist apartheid state that exists in Israel. But let's continue.
Of them. And Netanyahu gave him a special role in charge of settlement affairs. But perhaps the most surprising way that Netanyahu has actually jeopardized Israel's safety is that for years he deliberately used Hamas as a way to undermine the Palestinian Authority, a rival to Hamas which administers parts of the West Bank and has much more legitimacy on the world stage. Experts say that the idea was basically divide and conquer. If Palestinian leadership remains split and one of the main parties at the table has a terrorism label on it, it's going to be much easier for Netanyahu to refuse to engage with them and say that he has no partner for peace. Here is Smotrich explaining that strategy out loud in 2015.
The Palestinian Authority is a burden, and Hamas is a terrorist organization that no one will recognize and no one will give it status in the eyes.
Again, always ask. Ask a motherfucker, and he will tell you, dog. Ask someone in power in Israel what they mean, how they truly feel about the Palestinians, and they will tell you. They'll be like, yeah, they're dogs. They at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break, and they watch it. Okay? We don't. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe for $5 or free with a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, where you get 1 free Prime subscription a month. Use it on your favorite broadcaster. Hopefully that's me. Here's a 3-minute ad break now. You can also get gifted a sub if you're lucky.
ICC. No one will let them lead a decision in the Security Council. The main pitch we are playing now is international delegitimization. Hamas, at this point, in my opinion, will be an asset.
Hamas is an asset. If you are calling the group that has repeatedly killed your people an asset, it shows pretty clearly that what you care about isn't safety, but total control. And for years, Netanyahu's government was actually allowing suitcases of cash to be delivered to Hamas. Something, by the way, that earned Suitcases of Cash the title Most Morally Disreputable Way to Transfer Money for the 900th year in a row. When that scandal broke, Netanyahu insisted that that money was for humanitarian aid, which still doesn't explain why it had to be delivered in luggage in the back of a fucking car. The point is, Netanyahu took the risk of betting that he could control Hamas and use them to his own ends, and he was horribly wrong about that, to the point that his ministers are now getting screamed out of hospitals. So to recap so far, Palestinians and Israelis have both been relentlessly let down by their leaders, and the result has been a decades-long cycle of extremism, violence, retaliation, and more extremism. And
I mean, dude, even on both sides are the same equation. Like, even if you put Israel at the same moral playing field as Hamas, once again, pound for pound, more violent, more baby murder, more death and destruction, both in the maintenance of its fucking apartheid state, but also when it's doing sieges like this, okay? And not only that, but also on top of that, Palestinians don't have the population registry of Israel in the same way that Israel has the population registry of all the Gazans living in, all the Palestinians living in Gaza. So even if you try to fucking do a moral equivalency here, which would be false, Israel still loses on that front, okay? And also, another part of this, if you're going to talk about the democratic process, is that, like, this is an occupied territory. It doesn't have a fucking standing military, anything like that. And any time that it's actually held elections has been done with, Israel allowing them to hold elections, right? But elections are not exactly commonplace for Palestinians in general, whereas Israelis have reinforced their democratic process by voting for fucking psychotic right-wingers over and over again. So even on that front, it's like the moral equivalence doesn't even work.
And Palestinians have been on the receiving end of that extremism twice over, subject to the inadequacies and cruelties of a Hamas government and the punishing isolation and daily misery of an Israeli one, because Israel's approach to Gaza has been truly punishing, fencing people in, limiting exits, and trapping them inside of what has been called an open-air prison by many human rights organizations.
Israeli here, the more the world becomes pro-Palestinian or anti-Semitic, yes, I know those two things are very different things. The more us Israelis close our hearts to not only criticism of our state, but also the Palestinians' humanity. I know, brother, but you have to remember, this is why I always say, like, this is not about trying to be able to change the hearts and minds of Israelis. Like, that's not going to happen. As much as I love the 13 Israeli leftists that are in here, and I more power to you, okay? And I agree. I think you're fighting a very important battle because ultimately, remember, outside pressure in the South African apartheid, okay? Outside pressure in the South African apartheid, the white population in South Africa also had soured on the apartheid. There was a majority consensus even in the white population that they were like, we don't want this apartheid anymore. Okay? So it is important. It is important to recognize that, yes, Israelis also have to come to terms with the fact that the apartheid does not come without cost. And that cost will be violent, right? However, anytime there's any kind of violent retaliation, that only causes Israel to close in and say we have to be even more violent as a consequence of the violence, right? But the other side of this equation always is, did the world call Nelson Mandela's organization a terrorist? Yes, they did. Matter of fact, Nelson Mandela was on the terror watch list until 2008. So yes, Nelson Mandela was democratically elected and still was on the terrorist watch list. So yes, the world did call the ANC a terror organization, just like the world called the IRA a terror organization. It always works like that. I've never heard of the South Africa apartheid before. Do you have any good resources to learn on it? Wait, what? Okay, don't dunk on this person, chat. I will fucking fight you, okay? Yes. Any good resources to find out about the South African apartheid? I don't know. What could be a good way to point you in the right direction? I mean, Wikipedia would be a good start, probably. They don't teach it in Israel? Wait, really? That's actually not surprising that they don't teach it in Israel, because Israel was an ally to apartheid South Africa and defended apartheid South Africa quite regularly. Yes, it is supposed to be taught. It's a big deal for world history, I would say. What's a good way to learn about it? I feel like I learned it in college, so I don't know. Yikes, dude, you are a saint. Wait, what? Why would I ever fucking dunk on someone who is not coming in cynically, who legitimately is trying to learn? You guys are such fucking freaks, dude. Calm down. Like, what's wrong with you? Many of you didn't know a lot of shit that you learned here. Yes, there was a journeyman picture on the South African apartheid. Hold on, let me see. I mean, that literally compares it to Israel, as a matter of fact. American schools only teach up to the Industrial Revolution, Lamau. Yeah, I think it was Road to Apartheid, which is what we watched. Chat learned about politics during COVID. Now wants to literally execute everyone who isn't a radical revolutionary. They also haven't read Marx before. Yeah. What did you say? Check my logs. Keck W. What the fuck are your logs? What? Google Lebensraum im Osten. It'll blow your mind. Bitch, I know. I've made this analogy already, Mehmet Walshola. He thinks he's so slick for that analogy, dude. Really? Oh, is Israel doing living room policies? Wow, that's crazy, man. Anyway. Here, this seems good. South African History Online. Does Israel still hold the right to self-defense while breaking international laws? I read things about how that debunk this argument, saying there's no self-defense if against an occupied state. Well, I'm confused by what you were saying. Here, I mean, this is the journeyman. This is the Journeyman Pictures documentary. It's called Roadmap to Apartheid. So that's one immediate way to like get a better understanding of it. And then as far as the history of the apartheid, maybe like I don't know, like a book from Desmond Tutu or he won't read a book, bro. don't know that. Any of Steve Biko's writing? Art of Forgiveness by Desmond Tutu is good, but not the first go-to for history. Yeah, Nelson Mandela's autobiography. There's a shit ton of documentaries on South African apartheid that you can watch. Another thing, if you want to get a better feel for it, is other post-colonial nationalist movements, like in Algeria, which was important for Nelson Mandela as well. What is the average Israeli opinion on Nelson Mandela? I don't know, but I don't really care. But Pape's book on South Africa and Israel parallels is available on audiobook on YouTube now. What? Why are my fucking most unhinged parasocialists talking to one another in the chat? Don't interact with one another. Born a Crime, Trevor Noah's autobiography does a pretty good job explaining it. It's very accessible to normies. Sure. They barred the Mandela statue to Ramallah, so what?
Life under a blockade there has been hard for a long time, even when there aren't bombs flying.
The United Nations says just 10% of Gaza's 2 million people have access to safe drinking water.
My children get sick because of the water. They suffer from vomiting, diarrhea.
All the streets are full of trashes or of garbage. All the people, they have no work, they have not employment.
When people here run out of electricity, they only get 3 hours a day. They can either use a small battery to try to operate lights, or they just go outside and light fires. This life has given Imad, like many...
Yeah. Some of the worst things that you can, some of the worst things that immediately show you that Israel is running an apartheid racket, okay, is water rights. I believe in the West Bank, off the top dome, I might get these numbers a little incorrect here, but I'm going to ballpark it. In the West Bank, the daily consumption of the average West Bank Palestinian, which is their own land, internationally recognized as their own land that is currently being occupied by Israel, is 77 liters. The average daily consumption of water for the West Bank settler, however, Jewish settlers that live in the West Bank illegally occupying the West Bank, is more than 300 liters. Israel refuses to offer water rights and permits to build new wells to the Palestinians in the West Bank. They greatly limit their water supply, and they literally cement the existing wells time and time again. They put cement in their wells. Yeah. West Bank is pretty water rich in comparison to other parts of Israel, and yet they literally have to buy the water from Israel. Palestinians that have their own aquifers do not have access to their own water, and they have to go to fucking Israel to buy the water, and Israel limits the amount of water they can buy. Soon after Israel occupied the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip in June 1967, the Israeli military authorities consolidated complete power over all water resources and water-related infrastructure in the occupied Palestinian territories. For those of you who don't know, Israel does have a very communist land management structure. Of course, unfortunately, they do not have a very communist outlook on all people using the land, and they utilize the government control over the land to forcibly push out Arab citizens in Israel proper, and also operate with impunity in the West Bank under a similar structure as well. The Israeli government basically owns all the land. Not all of it, but a big chunk of it. And they do not offer any of that land to the Palestinian citizens of Israel, okay? 50 years on, Israel continues to control and restrict Palestinian access to water in the OPT, occupied Palestinian territories, to a level which neither meets their needs nor constitutes a fair distribution of shared water resources. In November 1967, the Israeli authorities issued Military Order 158, which stated that Palestinians could not construct any new water installation without first obtaining a permit from the Israeli army. Since then, the extraction of water from any new source or the development of any new water infrastructure would require permits from Israel, which are near impossible to obtain. They do not give these permits to the Palestinians on purpose. Yeah, odd that this was happening before Hamas. Approximately, 21 years before Hamas even became a political entity. Interesting. I guess they knew that it was going to happen. You know what I mean? They knew that it was inevitable, that there would be. Anyway. Palestinians living under Israeli military occupation continue to suffer the devastating consequences of this order until today. They're unable to drill new water wells, install pumps, or deepen existing wells, in addition to being denied access to the Jordan River and freshwater springs. Israel even controls the collection of rainwater throughout most of the West Bank, and rainwater harvesting cisterns owned by Palestinian communities are often destroyed by the Israeli army. As a result, some 180 Palestinian communities in rural areas in the occupied West Bank have no access to running water, according to OCHA. Even in towns and villages which are connected to the water network, the taps often run dry. Does that sound like it's not an apartheid? Because it is. Even though this fucking dipshit organization, Amnesty International, did not consider Israel to be a fucking apartheid state in 2017 while they were writing this. How crazy to me. Anyway, that's fine. Finally, they came around to it in 2021. In my opinion, Israel was always an apartheid state. Israel was an apartheid state before 1967. When the Palestinian citizens of Israel did not have the same rights. They still do not have the same rights as the Jewish citizens of Israel, but the Palestinian citizens of Israel were under the same exact brutal military regime that the Palestinians living in the West Bank were under. But post-1967, the entirety of the Palestinian population that lives in this land, historic Palestine, was subject to a brutal apartheid regime. Let's get back to John Oliver now.
Gasms, a sense of having little to lose.
Right, and you can't really blame him for feeling that way. Once you've lost clean water, sanitary space, job prospects, and most electricity, there's really not much left to lose but hope. And it's worth noting that there is one more major player in all of this that I haven't mentioned yet, and it's us. And I don't just mean the British, who are absolutely responsible for some of this. I'm talking about America, because this country has emphatically picked a side. In recent years, we've given Israel $3.8 billion a year in military aid. And you can make geopolitical arguments for why that is or isn't a valid thing to do, but it means we're heavily implicated in everything you've just seen. Just listen to...
That was the grossest thing he's ever said when he said some. The British are responsible for some of the problems. Motherfucker. I mean, come on. Okay?
To Bassem Aramin, a Palestinian whose 10-year-old daughter was killed by an Israeli border guard in 2007.
My daughter have been killed with American rubber bullet, unfortunately, from an American M16, unfortunately, from an American Jeep, American uniform, and the soldier have trained in America. So everything is American.
Right. Everything is American. And I know that is hard to hear. But the fact is, made in America is something that we...
This is why people who famously fucking say, like, Hezbollah is anti-Semitic, Hezbollah is anti-Semitic, everyone is anti-Semitic. No, they're anti-America first and foremost. That's why Hasan Nasrallah has also, the General Secretary of Hezbollah in Lebanon, has said, this is not a struggle against Israel. Although there are people who hate Jews amongst our ranks, amongst the Arab population, they are wrong. This is against America. Okay? Israel does everything it wants to do at the behest of the United States of America because America has interest in Israel dominating the region.
Understandably, love to brag about when it's slapped on things that we're proud of, but unfortunately, it's not just tractors, truck nuts, and Toby Keith songs. Sometimes it's stuff that's killing people. And so, having explained at least some of how we got here, now might be the time to talk about where we are. As of right now, Hamas is still holding all but 4 of the hostages that it's taken and firing rockets toward Israel every day. And Israel is bombing relentlessly. Again, thousands in Gaza have been killed so far, which honestly shouldn't be a total shock, given that early on an IDF spokesperson said out loud, the emphasis is on damage and not on accuracy. And there have been some maddening efforts to downplay the suffering in Gaza, like when Israel's ambassador to the UN said this last weekend.
There is no humanitarian crisis in Gaza. In coordination with the US and the UN, we allowed the number of trucks entering Gaza now with food and medicines to reach almost 100 trucks every day.
You've said this before, that there is no humanitarian crisis in Gaza. That's kind of an amazing statement because...
By the way, Dana Bash is like literally nonstop talking about how the real problem is anti-Semitism on college campuses, okay? Just understand. So, like, when Dana Bash is the one who goes, what the fuck are you saying? Okay? To the UN ambassador to Israel, okay? Israel's UN ambassador, that's who Gilad Erdan is, okay? Understand, he's popping off with the most insane shit, okay?
There were humanitarian problems there before the war, and now obviously it has gotten bad. But take their numbers aside. It has gotten to the crisis point.
I'm not saying that the life in Gaza is great.
Oh, okay, okay, but I'm not saying.
Gilad Erdan, wearing the fucking the yellow patch, the yellow Star of David. Every fucking day, by the way. Every fucking day, whenever he's on whenever he's delivering a statement in UN. So just remember that, okay?
It's great is a severe understatement there. That is something you say when you're describing the band at a wedding or a sandwich from Panera Bread. But it's not how you describe life in the middle of a fucking war zone, because those on the ground in Gaza will tell you it's absolutely a humanitarian crisis. Just watch this woman who works with Doctors Without Borders.
It is the worst humanitarian catastrophe I've experienced in my lifetime. You know, there's an acronym in the Gaza Strip right now. You know, I'm a pediatric intensive care doctor. I see a lot of suffering in my career. There's an acronym that is unique to the Gaza Strip, and it's WCNSF. Wounded child, no surviving family. Children, and it is used not infrequently in the last 3 weeks. Wounded child, no surviving family should not exist as an acronym.
She's right. And personally, I'm going to take my cues about what constitutes a humanitarian crisis from the humanitarians here. And I really don't have it in me to show you footage of people in agony tonight, but I do want you to see some kids in Gaza who've been displaced speak about what they've been going through.
الحاجة اللي زي هيك من الخوف هو بنخاف على أرواحنا. صرت أنا إيش أرجف حرف دي أرجف ودي صاروا رجعوني. من يصير تهدئة إنه يصير هدنة وما يصابش أحد تاني منا. نفسي نرجع نصير هدنة نرجع على الدار على بيوتنا ونحرف ننام ونكيف. أنا هيك حابب.
Yeah, I'd really like them to be able to chill the fuck out too. Because kids should never be losing sleep due to the fear of war. They should only be losing sleep for completely normal kid reasons, like tummy aches from eating too much candy, or apparently for Australian kids, staying up excited all night because it's Christmas Eve and you can't wait to see if Santa brought you a brand new bag for all of your... Wait to see if Santa brought you a brand new bag for all of your holiday ham for some deeply weird reason. It should be impossible to watch those kids and not feel shattered. There is a natural human impulse to protect children, to grab a toddler you don't know if you see them running into traffic. And if that impulse is broken or disincentivized by a government, there is absolutely a humanitarian crisis, no matter what any arsehole has to say about it. And look, I don't have a solution for peace in the Middle East. And even if I did, which again, I don't, this really would be the worst voice in which to relay that message. But it does seem to me personally that a ceasefire has to be the first step. That is something that people have been calling for all over the world, but it's something that world leaders have been reluctant to say. Just watch Justin Trudeau almost say it and then correct himself.
We need to see we need to see a humanitarian pause so we can flow. We need to see ceasing of the levels of violence that we're seeing.
Wow! He stopped himself mid-word there. He literally ordered a ceasefire on the word ceasefire. My only regret that he didn't just keep that word salad or word poutine going. We need a ceasing of the violence, a stopping of the explosion, sort of a halting of the booms, if you will. A halter-boom would be great right now. And it's not just Trudeau. Joe Biden has said there is no possibility of a ceasefire, which is a hell of a thing to hear from perhaps the only world leader whose pressure could actually make one possible. And listen, there are those like noted Mideast peace expert Harvey Levin, who will say, and not wrongly, that there are real dangers to a ceasefire, that Hamas might regroup once the bombing stops, although that's arguably going to be a danger whenever it stops. So why not stop right now? Continuing down this path only creates more extremists, which is the last thing that anybody needs. And I don't want to say anything that denies the pain of those in Israel who have lost loved ones to a truly barbarous act or who are waiting anxiously for the return of hostages. Although you should know, some hostages' families are also utterly furious at the military tactics that Netanyahu's employing right now.
We have to engage in negotiations. We have to do it now. They say that the only solution is to destroy, to flatten Gaza. They never mentioned the hostages, never.
Right, and you can see how infuriating...
That's why it's so fucking frustrating on top of everything else. Whenever motherfuckers are like, these posters, the hostage posters, it's like, bro, what are you saying? A ceasefire, or people who are advocating for a ceasefire, are literally more interested in the fucking hostages than those who are putting up the posters and going, keep reducing Gaza to rubble. Because when you reduce Gaza to rubble, those hostages are going to be reduced to rubble as well. Okay? It's so fucking annoying. I hate these goddamn ghouls. Oh my God. It's so frustrating. That's why I showed, like, the dudes who are taking down those posters in Israel, where those posters are a reminder to the fucking Israeli government that there are still Israeli citizens inside of Gaza that are trapped inside of Gaza, okay? That the people that are ripping those posters in Israel are the fucking Benjamin Netanyahu fans. In America, when you have the posters, when you put the fucking posters up, you're putting them up with a very specific purpose. The first and foremost, the real purpose of it is not to, like, find the fucking hostages, but it's to say, look, these guys were kidnapped by Hamas. Hamas is a dangerous military entity. They're dangerous terrorists, and we have to keep reinforcing our support for Israel and allow Israel to do whatever it feels it must do in order to defend itself. Okay? That's what that's the real reason for why the poster put up. Like, come on. I recognize that. I admit that. I don't know why people fucking think that that's a ridiculous thing to say. I don't even have an issue, of course, with recognizing, and I do recognize personally, that, like, yes, this is objectively a bad thing. Like, the fact that there are still children, babies, okay, that are kidnapped, stripped away from their mothers. All of this is not a good thing at all. It's a very bad thing, okay? Nobody thinks that hostages should not be released. Everyone wants the hostages to be released, okay? We've seen how effective social media sharing has been to bring awareness of the gravity of the situation. Can you plan what a feasible solution would be to actually benefit Palestinians? Apologize to John Oliver. He did a decent job on this one. Wait, what? I'm agreeing with that. I said that he did a decent job.
That would be. And I know that for many Israelis, there is an understandable sense of fear and precarity right now amid the specter of Hamas attacks.
Yeah, it's just frustrating because, like, the people who put up the fucking... Okay, I'm back. The people that fucking put up the hostage posters put it up to specifically be like, keep the bombing campaign going. Not every single person does it for that reason, but, like, the impact of that is ultimately in America or in the Western world is specifically this, okay? It's like everything that Israel's doing is right. Everything Israel's doing is not correctable. They're doing the right thing. They have to fucking strike at the heart of Gaza. They have to keep killing babies. They have to keep killing Palestinian children. It's totally just look at all the victims, right? Except Netanyahu's bombing campaign is literally killing the fucking hostages. The celebrity letter about the hostages explicitly calls for Biden to reject the ceasefire. It's so stupid. How the fuck do you think logistically you're going to bring the hostages home without a fucking ceasefire? People think like, well, they're hostages under Hamas, so what are they supposed to do? Like teleport them into Israel magically? Like what the fuck are you saying? Is it considered punching left to push back on things leftists say that you don't agree with if you do it in good faith? I mean, I think it's constructive criticism. I do it here all the time.
And rockets flying overhead, but it's worth also acknowledging the overwhelming sense of precarity among Palestinians living under a blockade and a barrage of Israeli rockets. And it has to be possible to feel the pain in one community without denying it in another. It has to be. That is perhaps the most necessary precondition for peace, because real peace here will clearly be difficult. It's going to be struggled toward as part of a larger pursuit of justice, which will in turn require an honest and uncomfortable reckoning with all the decisions that brought us to this point. And I know that hope is scarce right now, but I did see something this week which gave me a seed of hope. It involved this Israeli man, Rami El-Hanan, who lost his 14-year-old daughter to a Hamas suicide bombing 26 years ago. He actually co-directs a group called the Parent Circle with that Palestinian man that I showed you earlier, where parents who've lost children to this conflict get together to work toward peace. El-Hanan was asked if recent events had changed his worldview at all, and his response is worth listening to.
You know, we are in a circle of blood for the last 75 years, and this is just another round. Nobody expected the viciousness and the cruelty of this round, but it was expected. You cannot put 2 million people in a box, close the cover, and expect nothing will happen. It will not stop unless we talk. You cannot annihilate Hamas. You cannot ignore 6 million people, Palestinians, living here in the Holy Land. And you cannot expect them to go away. They will not go away. We will not go away. We are doomed to live here together, and we have to choose whether to share this land or to share the graveyard under it.
Exactly. And it is inspiring that despite what that man went through, he's still committed to achieving peace through talking. And it shows that any conversation around this has to begin with empathy, or we're just fucked. And obviously, we don't know how all this ends, but there are a few things that we do know. We know that dehumanizing people leads to violence. We know that violence leads to even more brutality and destruction. And we know that, crucially, breaking that cycle is unfortunately going to require leadership significantly different than the ones currently in place.